Okay, Jill. So, firstly, thank you to for everyone that's joined us here today. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Jasveer Singh, and I am the Senior Press Officer of the Sikh Press Association. The Sikh Press Association, just to let you know a little bit more about us, we are a news agency that work between the Sikh community and the media. So that means we facilitate for both sides. If the media wants something from the Sikh community, we're here to help them. If the Sikh community want to get something into the media, we're here to help them for that. We are a project of Everything's 13. Everything's 13 are the charity behind Basics of Sikhi, Mighty Khalsa, Kiri Sangat, and ourselves. Regarding the farmers' protest, many people do say that this isn't specifically a Sikh issue, and they're right. This isn't a Sikh issue, but this is an issue for every single Sikh. There are millions of our community directly involved on the ground out in India and Delhi. So therefore, it is of course, imperative that the Sikh Press Association get involved. Now we're here today together to simply have a conversation with people from all over the world and hear what our community have been doing regarding the farmers' protest and hear what might be planned in the future, especially in the run up to a momentous day tomorrow. 26th of January is India's Republic Day. There's going to be the biggest demonstration yet. We're talking millions of people in one mobilized movement in Delhi and hundreds of thousands of tractors in the Tractors Rally. There is a lot of concern about what will happen tomorrow on the ground. I have personally had messages from those that they're protesting, worried about potential police violence and police brutality, which we know is a common issue when it comes to anything in India, really. So, with that in mind, we're bringing Sangat together here today so we can have a conversation between ourselves and we can figure out, where we're going, what we are doing, and also keep our eyes focused on the issue at hand. So thank you again for joining us. To begin with, because I know it's very late there, I'm going to ask Himmat Singh, who is an affiliate of the Ramgarhia Youth Association, a Sikh organization and community group based in Kenya that do a lot of great work. A lot of their work is based around langar seva and aid work that they do for the general communities of Kenya. They've also been doing a lot to raise awareness about the farmers' protest in Kenya. So because it's late there, Himmat Singh, if you just want to start by telling us what have you been up to and what else the organizations you connect with been up to regarding the farmers' protest.
Okay, my name is Himmat Singh from the Ramgarhia Youth Association from Nairobi, Kenya. Yes, we have been getting together here and raising funds with the Sikh Women's Society, getting together to raise funding for the Sikh protests. And I think the Indian government should support this protest as as that's the way that bread is for the farmers. So we have been getting together here, and our community in Kenya is not at large. We have a very small community, but whatever minimal we have done, we have tried to support the farmers all the way to India through finances.
So what has the reaction been like within the small Sikh community in Kenya when it comes to the farmers' protest? Is everyone kind of singing off the same hymn sheet, as we say, or is everyone united in the thought that this is something the Sikh community in Kenya needs to get behind?
We are in Kenya. We are all united, and we are for the protest for the farmers in India.
Brilliant. And what kind of things have you specifically done? Because I've seen kind of you dedicate some of the langar seva that you do for communities to the farmers' protest going on. Is there anything else that you've done in terms of maybe rallies or perhaps even speaking to politicians out in Kenya? Anything like that you could talk about?
Well, we have been spreading the word around to the head of the state of the government, and they are aware of what's been happening. But like I said, we are a minority community in Kenya, so whatever minimum we can do, we have been trying to spread the word around, and we have been assisting the farmers in India as well through the finances, through our coordinators in India. So whatever minimum we have done, we are trying to assist whatever we can.
Amazing. That's really good to know. So you've not only been raising awareness, but directly supporting the farmers out there. Again, I know that it is late there. So in regards to the organization, where can people kind of follow you and learn more about the work that the Ramgarhia Youth Association do?
Okay, we do have our media channels we do have our Facebook pages. You can follow us on Instagram. We have our website, which is www.rykenya.org. and we can be through all the media platforms on Twitter, on Instagram. Everyone can follow us, and we can get all the updates from there.
Thank you so much. So if there is any people out here that are maybe not involved with the organization from Kenya, or even if you're watching now and you have family in Kenya that you want connected with more Sangat that can support these kind of movements, then that's where to look out. Look out for the Ramgarhia Youth Association. Sikh PA, we're always sharing their work and retweeting it too, so do look out for that on our own social media channels. But Himmat Singh, is there any other last words? Because like I said, it's late. I don't want to keep you up too late in Kenya.
Yeah, we are in. If there's any support that's required from our end, we will definitely support the protest, and we do thank you for bringing us in this chat, and we are really thankful, and we do hope it all goes to success.
Thank you so much, Virji. Continue your great work, and we look forward to connecting with you soon. So that was Himmat Singh, guys, from the Ramgarhia Youth Association in Kenya.
Thank you, Jasveer. Very much appreciated.
Thank you. Take care. So, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Okay, so now we're going to see if there's anyone else that is from any country where it is particularly late or even particularly early, because I believe we'll have some people joining us from Australia. Please do give us a shout, give me a shout, sorry, so we can platform you early enough or late before you have to go to bed. So if you're from anywhere like Kenya where it's late, if you're from, I know I had messages from people in Malaysia where it's like 4 a.m. saying they might join, or if it's very early and you're in Australia, just give me a nudge, put your hand up using the buttons below, or just speak out, and we'd love to hear from you. But if there's no one right now, I'm going to ask Dr. Amandeep Singh, who I believe is in Austria. Is it, Virji? Dr. Amandeep Singh from Austria, who's been working with Sangat, the Sikh congregation in Germany and Austria on this issue. So Dr. Amandeep Singh, if you'd like to tell us a bit more about what you've been doing in Austria and Germany.
Hi, so welcome everybody. Yeah, we've been doing our part from Germany and Austria. We've been doing a little for our Seva. So basically what we did is in early December, we started to organize protests in all over Germany and Austria. In Austria, it was basically one city, Vienna, which we organized a protest. It all started with car rallies, which we tried to do joint. So all the rallies, all the protests at the same day on the same time. And we've been doing that quite successfully. Those events were very successful. In Vienna, we had over 500 cars. In Frankfurt on December 19th, over 700 cars. And now tomorrow we are having protests in Vienna, in Hamburg, Berlin, and Frankfurt, all at the same time. Those will be protests usually held in front of some kind of embassy, of the Indian embassy. And yeah, the response has been very great. A lot of people have come together. A lot of young people have come together. We are all youngsters. And we organized ourselves to support and do our part in the farmers' protest.
Thank you so much, Vidi. And that's amazing to hear, I think, for a lot of our community here that don't really know much or don't really consider our communities out in other parts of Europe. I think the UK, we here often take the kind of limelight of when it comes to European Sangat, but that was like Berlin, Hamburg, Frankfurt, Vienna. These are big major cities in Europe, and for you to organize 500 plus car rallies is really amazing. What has the reaction been like from the public, from the average German, Austrian, seeing this kind of mobilization?
This is actually, well, we have been getting a lot of positive responses from our Sangat, but the issue we are really facing is that the media, especially German and Austrian media, they were not so interested in the farmers' protests happening in India. And I've tried to reach out to them. We've sent emails, we've called them. I had some press contacts myself, which I tried to call, and I tried to convince them. But the general response was that the topic is just not interesting for the general population in Germany and Austria. And so we will still continue, we will still support and do everything what we can do from our side. But it's tough, of course, it's really tough. But what is really a big positive side, that the whole protests have brought us all together. Like in Germany, different people from different cities who have never been in touch before, all connected for the farmers' protests to support that. And I think that is a very positive sign and a positive sign in the right direction.
That is most definitely a positive sign, and hopefully this will take us one step further with another positive way of people from Austria, Kenya connecting with our Sangat from California, Vancouver, and so forth. So that is partly why we're doing this event today, and also, like I said, to ensure that globally we keep focused on the issue. What has it been like working with the authorities? Have you had to get permission to kind of organize these big rallies? Have they been okay with these demonstrations, especially in a pandemic?
Yeah, this is the biggest issue that we actually faced, is the issue of the pandemic. So of course, you're free to organize protests, but you also have to keep in mind that there are a lot of regulations, and every city has different regulations since every city is in a different state. And for example, in Stuttgart or in Frankfurt, there are different regulations than in Munich and Hamburg. But the good thing was that we are all connected together. We have social media, we have WhatsApp groups, and we can talk to each other, we can help each other out. And until now, it was no problem to organize those protests. Of course, our people, sometimes they don't follow the rules as we might hope or expect. But the response in that case has been really people were really understanding, and until now we haven't faced any issues. But of course, it is the longer the pandemic goes, the harder it gets. And right now, with all the restrictions, we are in lockdown in Germany, we are in lockdown in Austria. It is very tough to organize big protests, and also people, the Sangat is they are not so motivated to go out in big crowds and to protest together. But as I said, tomorrow we will see. Tomorrow we don't have car rallies, we have protests on site. And I'm very curious to see how many people will come out, and we will definitely keep the Sangat updated on the social medias.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Just a couple of final points. You did mention the media. Now, that is a very difficult task for all of us. Even in the UK here, we have, quite a prominent Sikh community, but getting the average British citizen to kind of connect with that story is difficult. And that's why we do often find these barriers within media. The average person in the newsroom, the average journalist or editor, they can't see the connection of making this story relatable to people. So, keep persevering. The magnitude of the event itself is definitely going to raise attention and get us kind of that awareness that we're looking for, so people are aware of, what the Sikh community is doing, what we are facing when it comes to the Indian state, and, what our movements are about, what our philosophy is just from our actions. Thank you so much for your time. If there's any kind of social media or anything you'd like people can follow to get updates from what Sangat is doing in Austria and Germany, do let us know.
I will post it in the chat.
Yeah, please do post it in the chat. Thank you so much for your time. And if there's anything else, if anyone else has any questions for Amandeep Singh, or we had Himmat Singh on before, I'm not sure if he's still on, please do just shout out, just feel free to speak, put your questions in the chat, maybe anything akin, because this event is very much about connecting our global Sangat, because we're all doing the same thing and working in the same kind of sphere. I believe we have Pavanjit Kaur, who's from Malaysia with us. And it is very early, I believe it's 4 a.m. So if you're with us, Panji, would you like to speak and have an opportunity to tell us what Sangat in Malaysia have been up to?
Hanji, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, it is 4:20 a.m.
So thank you so much for taking the time to join us at this late time for you, early time.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so basically, in Malaysia here, we do have a very different situation from the West, only because of the fact that our country in itself isn't really democratic. So we claim to be democratic, but we're not. And, having to organize protests and things like that, it's a very tedious process. And it's one that can really affect our long-term, career-wise and things like that. So, having to speak to lawyers before we even begin to organize is something that's a norm here. And because of that, we had a car rally planned, but then it got cancelled because of the authorities. And so it's something really normal here, and it's a sad thing. So a lot of us, what we did was we just used social media to raise awareness, and we did see a lot of local newspapers picking it up. However, it's not as perhaps not something that was consistent. Just at the beginning, it did pick up, so that was great in a sense. But really, mostly we've just mobilized donations to go to the farmers in India, and working with Khalsa Aid and things like that. That's basically how much we can do. But we've used our own agencies through our own platforms to raise awareness on the issue, however. Yep.
That is really fantastic to know, and again, learn that all of our community all around the world is doing so much. And it's great to hear that, groups like Khalsa Aid that have that international reach, through them, people around the world like yourself, we have an opportunity to support them and thus support the process. Just a quick question on the difficulties you mentioned about kind of organizing protests and issues, perhaps, with the authorities out there in terms of spreading awareness and, furthering the word. Is this something which is perhaps influenced by India, or is this just because of the nature of Malaysia?
It's actually because of the nature. And, we've even had protests around the government and things like that, but it's all been very dictated. So that's what we face as a community here. And it's not just in Malaysia, I would say that we are seeing the same things happening in Singapore, Thailand, Brunei. So a lot of Southeast Asian Sikhs, I would say that we're seen quiet only because of the fact that we're not allowed to speak. But I think in today's age, social media is a weapon, really.
Yeah.
So, we're using it to our own capabilities and abilities. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that reminds me of a quote that I have used before, which is, if the pen is mightier than the sword, then the internet is like a nuclear bomb. So we use the resources that we can, but that's really interesting to know about the circumstances, because I did receive a message from Sangat, a Sikh congregation in Thailand, about similar issues that they faced. I think a protest, a rally got cancelled there too. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And again, it is 4 a.m., so I don't want to keep you for too long.
No worries.
Anything else you'd like to say to add to this? If anyone has any questions for you, please do ask Pavanjit Kaur any questions. But do also place any social media tags in the chat, so Sangat from across the world can also follow you and just learn more about the kind of work that you guys are doing out in Malaysia.
All right. Thank you so much, Ji. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa. Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you so much for your time, Banji. I believe next I'm going to ask Haj Kera to speak about the work being done in Canada. If you can hear me, Haj.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Guruji. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
So I'm a music artist myself. I've been making music because us as Sikhs and Punjabis, we've had such a big disengagement from our history, especially from our language. So I've created music in Punjabi and English to teach us of sort of the stories of our shaheeds and where we come from and what we've been fighting against. I've written a couple of article pieces that I put forward to quite a few news organizations. There was about 4 or 5 out in Canada. But a lot of them feel like because they've talked about it in the past few months, there's no need to keep talking about it. But there's just a couple of things that I want to mention. We've had quite a few marches in Vancouver. We went to the Indian embassy in downtown, which was blocked off for the day. But there's just a couple of things I want to talk about. Is firstly, us as a Sangat, we can centralize our resources and our views. So instead of looking for outside validation and showing everybody else that look what's happening to us, we need to strengthen our core focus, which should be ourselves. So if we could get a platform for ourselves that instead of us looking at BBC or MSNBC or CBA or whatever it is, we have one central media form that we can look at. And then we don't have to look outside after that. We know our own facts and our own stories. The other thing is how we want a lot of media to sort of give the limelight for this. But we have to understand what these media corporations are. The only reason they're not responding to us is because they benefit from the very systems that we're fighting against. If you think about a completely capitalized world with a top-down economy, these are the very establishments that have been supporting those systems for years. So we need to create an alternative rather than going from them, rather than going to speak for them. But if we genuinely put all of our central focus together, the thing that most nations will be scared of is our voting power. So if we can show people that if you're not even going to speak about these topics that are very like central to our hearts, you lost the votes of Punjabis. In Canada, that's massive. So Canada and the UK have very similar populations for Punjabis and Sikhs. And if each political leader knew that without them talking about it, they're not going to get the Punjabi vote, they're going to be on the back foot. But the one thing I wanted us to focus on is we've got so many talented people. We've got script writers, we've got video makers, we've got storytellers, we've got everything. We just don't have a central place for us to connect together where everybody can touch in and chip in for the same thing. Because things like Facebook ads and YouTube ads is what I've been using mainly. So we can reach out there. My brother showed me how to do this, and he's written a cool little article. So if you want to have Facebook ads targeted at specific people, it's really cheap, it's really simple. I can add that in once I get it off him. It's not too hard to get the word out there, but I think for us, the shift should be supporting each other. And I've had it where we see beautiful artists, but sometimes we don't like their post or comment or subscribe. Or we flip them off. But it's not always the case. We need to support each other instead of having this sort of competition with each other. It's just beautiful. Sorry, I've got so much to say.
No, it's okay. I just want to touch on a few things you said because I wholeheartedly agree. Here at the Sikh Press Association, it is very obviously our job to try and facilitate news with the likes of the BBC and so forth. And in the last 30 days, Sikh PA has arranged 2 different national news pieces on BBC News. But nevertheless, we still get people saying to us, like, there hasn't been much in the news, there isn't been enough awareness. Sorry, if you're not speaking, would you mind being on mute just while we what else? Let me see if I can use and use the space for stuff you really like. You can put yourself on mute if you're not speaking. Set the price. So I can find thousands of second-hand. I'm going to try and put them on mute so I'm not speaking over them. Just give me a second. Sorry. I made the food into that today. I love that feeling. So do we. UK's #1. Guys, if you can hear me, we can hear your TV in the background. If you could put yourself on mute just for a second. I can't seem to find who's doing that. Okay, there we go. I think they're on mute. Sorry, BG. So I was just saying, so for example, SikhPA, we've arranged 2 national news pieces on BBC News, and people will still say that's not enough. And that's because what you're saying is 150% right. We are relying on these big mainstream organizations, which, you know, I'm sure many people can show me ways that they would benefit from the kind of systems and issues that we're protesting against as a community, that is. But whatever we do, even if tomorrow there was a 2-hour news feature on the BBC News, which was nothing but, you know, all of us here speaking and talking about our angst against the issues, that's still not going to bridge the gap between the real issue and what we want. So we're going to have to start thinking about how we bridge that gap. And part of that is us creating our own platforms. And this is one version of that kind of platform, bringing us together internationally, where people can start to learn about who's doing what in Germany and Malaysia and Kenya and start connecting with them. And hopefully from that we'll grow. So I 100% agree with you, even though my work means that I do work in that area where we're trying to get that information to the BBC. I recognize that is very limited and there's more we need to do internally to kind of solidify, you know, where we're trying to go and really strengthen the path of the Sikh community and how we control our own narratives.
So yeah, that's I 100% agree, and that's what it's about, is controlling our own narrative. Because if we look at our history, our narrative as Punjabis and Sikhs has always been about inqilab, and that inqilab has always been about equality. Now, we had a colonial system that was built on divide and rule. So I don't know if many people know this, but mainstream media in India was actually started as a tool to divide Muslims, Hindus, and Sikhs after the 1857 rebellion. So the very mainstream media platforms that we want to go on were built on the divide of ourselves. So where we can start, and these are small little tangible things, because everything starts from something very small, like a liter of water always starts with one drop. So the first thing we can do is by creating platforms for us. So there's a website called, for example, there's a website called Film Freeway.
You put those in the chat, please, so people can kind of share them if they are within the kind of relevant to this. Just put them in the chat afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. So there's one thing called Film Freeway where they hold awards. So it's a film award or a music video award. So we can organize that ourselves. It's so simple to sign up, and we can have like a Sikh media award. So we can give awards for music, and that way we concentrate everybody who's talking about Sikhi or Punjabi. They're concentrated in one place, and we can all network with each other. I can put this out. I'll show you exactly what I mean, but I think that's one of the first steps for us to get together. And I generally, it's massive what you're doing, like talking to the BBC and everything else is essentially going against giants, right? And I think one thing for us to understand is a big part of our history is storytelling. So we're sort of telling a story here, and we know that people agree. We know what they're talking about. They're fighting for Mother Earth. Whereas when we have these conversations in the media, we never talk about this idea. There's millions of people, especially in like Canada, just for example, who want to go against this sort of like materialism that we live, where we're destroying the earth, but we just need to tell that story that we're fighting from the same place. And there's a lot of people who can engage. But I think for us, the most important thing is becoming a resource within ourselves, having that Jord between ourselves. So we don't have to have validation. We can validate each other and support each other and like and share. And the more we engage, the more it'll come up on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and whatever you want, because we engage with each other. And again, it's a beautiful thing what you're doing, just having this conversation of I've got nothing but love for this. And love for each other, man. That's what we need, right?
Anji. So thank you. You really just kind of helped underline the reasoning of having this discussion here today, which, you know, we did on a whim. I would have liked to have done it kind of a bit more organized with a bit more notice, because we only put this out on Saturday. But, you know, we take what opportunities we can. But thank you so much, Haj. And do put in any relevant social media tags where people can follow and connect.
My daddy and
you can put yourselves on mute, guys, until so again, put any social media tags in the chat so people can connect with you. That's the main thing about today, and let's keep our focus on the issue, because tomorrow is a huge day for the community. So thank you so much for your time, Haj. And if there's anything else you want to summarize with?
Just Sangat, please just stay together. We've lit the fire where we can now become a community. Let's keep this going. It doesn't matter where you are. We've got the internet now. Let's just keep talking.
Thank you so much, Vijay. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So Sangat Ji, again, with this conversation we're having, if any of you are particularly at a time where you just want to have your say and leave, just let me know, just speak, just put it in the chat, raise your hand if you can, use the buttons below at the bottom of the screen, because I know for some of you it's very late, as we had Sangat from Kenya, even Sangat from Malaysia speaking at 4 a.m. Thank you so much to them. But if there's anyone in a similar predicament, just let me know and we'll get you to speak. But otherwise, I'm going to speak to someone that's done quite a bit of unique work in regards to supporting the farmers' protest. And that's Mehtab Singh, who I believe is from the USA, I think, California. And if you can hear me, Vijay, if you would like to take yourself off mute and tell us just a bit more about what you've been doing and how that's kind of impacted the farmers' protest, please.
So my name is Mehtab Singh. I'm from California, and just to quickly go into this issue that we're facing today and provide some context into the type of work that we're doing. So essentially what we've done is we've started a GoFundMe page I'm actually going to link that in the chat right after I'm done speaking. So this GoFundMe page is actually facilitated through Guru Nanak Langar Seva Society International, which is an organization that has been supporting Shaheed families and Kisan families for 3 years now. And this is not only in the Punjab region, this is in other states such as Haryana and Rajasthan. So they've been doing amazing humanitarian work, which is like with only like about 4 or 5 team members on the ground at the moment. They've been able to reach numerous amounts of families, and we'll actually go into an example of a family that they've reached that was involved in the Delhi protest, and the gentleman had passed away due to a car accident. So what we do with this GoFundMe page is we help provide families with funds for simple necessities such as food, shelter, and an education for their children. And then a lot of these farmers are facing hardships such as debt, drug and alcohol abuse, cancer, water security, and pesticide abuse. So just to give a stat into like how critical this situation is, from 2000 to 2015, there were over 16,000 farmer suicides in Punjab, of which 94% of those suicides were due to debt. So we started this GoFundMe and we paired with Guru Nanak Langar Seva Society International just to combat this, in a sense, it's almost a pandemic that's been happening or occurring in Punjab since the 80s and even further back. Just looking at the exploitation of Punjab, just wanted to, like, this GoFundMe kind of leads back to the Green Revolution under Indira's regime. And the weird thing is it's the same type of battle that Sikhs and Punjab is facing, is just under a different tyrannical regime at the moment. And so these concerns were addressed via the Anandpur Sahib resolution, as well as various other forms of combat. And so we just thought, like, the youth in, because the people that are organizing this are from Canada, Harman Kaur, who runs a page called Brown Journals, and she's very vocal about the oppression that Sikhs face, and the BJP, RSS, and all these organizations that have had went against Sikhs in a sense, as well as Kunali was saying from CSYA, the CSYA that has joined us today. This GoFundMe wouldn't have been possible without like everybody's contribution as a Sangha that Maharaj has like really blessed us to allow us to do the seva. So just to go into depth in terms of like what this GoFundMe does and like how much money we provide to each family. So far we have had 23 families that we've identified. Even though our team is very small, our Punjab liaison, Balwinder Singh Bokoke, he's actually spoken on stage at the Delhi Kisan Union protest. And he's made this GoFundMe very vocal because there are a lot of other GoFundMes that have been proven to be false, which kind of really hurt us in a sense. So we had to fight a lot of false allegations about this GoFundMe being false as well. Yeah. But at the end of the day, Maharaj made it all happen. We went from $0 all the way to about $94,000 that we're at now. And that's all because of the Sanghat's Kirpa. So we wanted to thank everybody for providing us with their trust and these funds so we can go ahead and help these families.
In regards to, if I could just jump in there, sorry, in regards to the fundraiser, I would say the Sikh Press Association, I think yours is the only fundraiser that we have actually directly shared. I know that there were accusations going around. I don't think that necessarily these were malicious ones, because this is kind of quite normal within the Sikh community. It's because sometimes the level of transparency that is available when it comes to these kind of issues is not always satisfactory to those who are going to ask. But what I saw from the reaction from your fundraiser was that you were so open. You were like, look, here's the people you can get in touch with. You can get on the phone to any time and have a conversation. You went even further and put out a spreadsheet, which we've seen, to kind of show directly who is benefiting from the money that you're raising. And those efforts were really magnificent at kind of just just being clear on how these fundraisers are going, because we out of choice had to say we're not going to share too many fundraisers because I think, like I said, yours was the only one that we did share, because we know that there's certain questions about them that we might not be able to answer. So therefore, then the buck stops with us, because if they aren't able to get in contact with those that are doing the fundraiser, then it can become an issue, which, you know, not everything is something that's, you know, suspicious. It's just the fact that, you know, there's time involved. There's a lot of admin work that needs to get involved, that needs to happen for these things to be kind of presented in a public way where it might satisfy anyone asking questions. But again, we saw you guys just being so open, saying, you know, get in touch with us at any point. Here's how we address this question, that question, to the point where we've now seen the kind of spreadsheet. So, you know, I think it's a great example, the way you guys handled that situation, as to how other people doing fundraisers can kind of match that template. And in future, you know, we can see more such things replicated. So again, I commend you on that work. Well done. I know it comes with a lot of responsibility, which can mean a lot of headaches. So well done for handling that really well. What else kind of can you talk about in terms of the involvement? You talk about the California Sikh Youth Association. In a second, I'll bring in Kunali, Singh, and we'll hear more from them. But what else have you guys been up to that you might want to tell us about?
So before we get to that, just really quickly, I want to thank you for the kind words, as well as, like, we understand that transparency is needed. So we try to provide transparency in every way possible. And in the form of, like, so when we actually get the seva over to these families, a check is handed over to them physically, as well as the members take a picture with the families, and all their information, every cent is accounted for and reported back, so that way the Sangat knows exactly where their donations have gone, and so that way they can kind of keep an eye, because trust is one of the key main values and of SikhPA, right? And so we try to reflect that into the GoFundMe. And again, this GoFundMe wouldn't be possible without the Sangat's donations and all the individuals around us that have actually helped create this GoFundMe. So I can't actually take any of the praise for any of this work. This all belongs to Maharaj and all the individuals around us, such as Kunali Singh. And just to go off of that, based on, like, the type of work that we're doing at the moment to help these families. So every family gets a $1,000 check, which translates into 50,000 rupees to pay off debt. A lot of these families actually have funeral rights. So we actually started this GoFundMe before the historical Delhi protest. And so a lot of these farmers, who happen to be both ladies as well as men, have actually passed away. So we started this, it's been like since like September, right? I got to go back to look at when we started this. And then the whole Delhi protest happened. So it kind of like just really, you know, just gained traction. So these $50,000, 50,000 rupees for each family, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, depending on what the family needs, because we're here at the end of the day to help provide for the family. And we know Maharaj and the Sangat will help. These funds will continue to come in, right? I don't know, this is just an amazing quote. I think Kugi said that, like, from 25 rupees, right? The seva has started. And now it's an endless amount of donations just constantly coming.
500 years.
Right? Because when the month comes together, we're all cohesive, and we do actually come together. Right. And so a lot of this, in terms of transparency, I can actually link this right after I'm done speaking in the chat, the Guru Nanak Langar Seva Society International Twitter page and Instagram page, as well as our own personal page that we like to help provide more transparency as we go along, just because we can't update the pages every day. And just an example of one of the families that we've supported that I actually spoke about from when I actually began speaking is the gentleman, his name is Janakaraj from Mansa district in Punjab, who is the son of Pritam Laws. So this gentleman was a 55-year-old man, and he was actually a mechanic. So he had gone to the Delhi border to express solidarity with the farmers. And he was actually burnt alive after the car he was sleeping in caught fire at the Delhi-Haryana border. So we actually have reached out to the family, and we've already got over the funds to their family. which is amazing. And in terms of transparency, there's newspaper articles that have been published that we can that are on the Facebook and Instagram and Twitter page as well, that can actually kind of like provide that same feedback.
Yeah.
And so this is an example of one of the 23 families that we supported. We're constantly looking for more families. The issue sometimes becomes that a lot of these families, because the government says we'll provide you guys with some type of help, but they have never received that help. So they can't kind of get skeptical when they hear that people from the West or people from outside of Punjab will be helping them, because they're like, we never received any type of funds from the government. So how is this possible from somebody else? And now that they have reached these, they're going to actually tell more families, which will reflect into more donations being sent over and more families joining this effort.
Brilliant.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, if you'd like to just summarize and finish off.
Oh yeah. No, I just wanted to once again say thank you, but I think kind of made it very clear with all these thank yous that the Sangat is amazing, and Maharaj is amazing for giving us this opportunity. The Panth is forever at the highest, and so we wanted to make sure that we serve the Panth in all forms. And I believe this GoFundMe is just the beginning, because even though this is our first GoFundMe, there are a lot of things that we've learned that we want to implement in not only our daily lives, but further collective efforts to do more for the Panth. And so we will be linking the GoFundMe and the various social media pages right after this conversation.
All of that in the chat. And thank you so much for your time, BG. I think it's clear, your sincerity and how much this means to you definitely comes across. So your efforts are much appreciated, and Maharaj works through his good Sikh. So it's a pleasure connecting with you. And like you said, this is just the beginning, no matter what the situation turns into out in India. So thank you for your time, BG.
Thank you for allowing us to use this platform.
No problem. Thank you, G. I believe we have Sukhmi Gurwal is from Australia, I think. Vijay, I think I connected with some of your team that said you're going to speak. If I am missing out or if I've confused you with somebody else, I do apologize. But if any Sangat is on from Australia, I know it's very early and you probably are still kind of, looking for your morning coffee. So if you'd like to speak, take yourselves off mute and join in the conversation.
Waheguru Ji Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Fateh.
Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Yeah, so it's just me and Sukhmani Kaur as well this morning, and she's from Melbourne as well.
Thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. So yeah, I think for us, this protest was really one that was created out of necessity. I know that was a large part of why I got into it. Why the other young people here got into it was really that we just weren't seeing that unity that we're seeing in India, that we're seeing in Canada, that we're seeing in America, in Australia. We just weren't seeing it here. And I think that was a large part of why we just decided that if no one else is going to do it, why don't we do it? You know what I mean? And then, yeah, when the opportunities just started arising, we started getting more into it. And it was so powerful just to see the entire Melbourne population come together. And it's actually today. So we're just making final preparations right now.
So thank you so much.
It's looking...
Today
no worries.
For those in Australia, it is the 26th today. So today they've got things planned and they've still taken time out to join with us. So let's make sure, we show our appreciation. But sorry, BG, carry on. What have you got planned?
No worries.
What's the
it was just really powerful, honestly. That was really what it was. It was just really endearing, I guess, heartwarming as well. Just being able to see a lot of the young Punjabi Sikh population here, people who, people that I had never met before we started this protest, and now, we're having these conversations and we're building these relationships and we're creating these connections that are so important, that I think that are going to be foundational for future things that we need to utilize and build towards something even greater next time. Yeah, and that's about all I have to say. If Sukhmani, do you wanna speak?
Yeah, please. I have some questions for both you and
no worries. Yeah.
What has it been like? Because you've described just basically taking something from nothing where there wasn't any structural organization to creating something where you said, like, you know, the whole of the Punjabi community of Melbourne came together. So what was that like? Did you have any resistance there, or was it just everyone was on board because they know how important this issue was?
I guess like anything else that you try to get Punjabis together on, there's always going to be some resistance somewhere. Yeah. There's always going to be someone saying that we're focusing on the wrong thing, or that someone's saying we're not including that thing, or things like that. But the thing that was definitely different that I saw this time was people were a lot more open to listening and actually understanding, which is probably the biggest change that I've seen from, you know, previous, you know, protests that, you know, I've been to, or previous things that the Punjabi community has tried to hold, is that this time there was a genuine concern about the issue that's going on in Delhi, but also a genuine want and a desire to actually be unified.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I agree with that so strongly. And just to echo what you were saying earlier, I think in Australia, since our community is so new, we're just first and starting to become second generation migrants in comparison to like the UK and Canada. We haven't had the same amount of time to collectivize in an issue. So I think Sukhmeet will agree, we've always held a deep admiration for how well the community has been collectivized in places like UK, Canada, America. And that's something that we've always wanted to embody within Australia as well. And this has just been the perfect opportunity to do so. Obviously, since it is just the beginning, there have been challenges in terms of getting people on board, but this issue has brought people together in a way that's, I think, been like unprecedented here. So yeah, it's exciting to see how this will allow our community to like mobilize in the future as well.
It definitely is exciting because, again, this is the first time I've been part of something. I've been working now full-time in a role for the Sikh community for nearly 6 years. And this is the first time there's been something international like this. So we're hearing from people that have, you know, spent a long time working in these fields, with people that have been doing it new like yourself. Do make sure you put your social media tags in the chat so people can kind of follow and connect. I have a couple of more questions though. Sukhmani, how have you found the reaction from the rest of the country, from those that are seeing, you know, the Punjabis mobilized like this, the average Australian or other communities? What's the reaction been like from them?
I think the reaction has been a lot of questions. People have been asking what's going on. So we had a protest in Melbourne. I think every 2 years we have a Boxing Day test cricket match between the Indian and Australian teams, and we had a protest in front of the MCG. I think that got quite a bit of questions from the broader Australian population as to what was happening, but I think it has been said previously as well in this meeting that it consistently feels like it's not enough. It consistently feels like, because we hold this issue so dear in our hearts and we're so emotionally invested, no matter how many questions we get, or no matter how many like times our non-Sikh, non-Punjabi, or non-even Indian diaspora friends post about it, it feels like it just hasn't been enough. And I think potentially it's a thing where farming and is so intrinsically tied within our identity, and we can see the historical lead up to this issue, that it's not just in an isolated, it's not just an isolated event, but that's difficult to translate to people around us because for some reason it just doesn't seem as big. And I think potentially it's because we consistently, or people here consistently hear news about human rights abuses in other countries as well, that there's only so much energy people can devote to issues that don't affect them directly. So I think while it is, to us, it might feel disheartening that people around us aren't as engaged, I think we can, like, I do hold that sort of understanding where that it is difficult to engage with every single issue in every single country to the same level.
Definitely. And you know, I'm really glad that you're saying that, and this is kind of becoming a natural theme of this conversation, because so many of you organizers are putting in so much work, and you know, sometimes we can be left with that feeling, oh, it's not enough, because you know, it's not had enough impact, and is it really changing anything? Is it really doing anything? And firstly, that isn't a nice feeling to have, but it's one at the same time we need to accept, because we are always going to have that feeling that, you know, we can do more, we should do more. And at the end of the day, there's an issue on the ground out there in India, which, if we have to be honest, we can only affect so much. And, you know, some would say we can't affect it much at all from our positions here in Australia and the UK and, you know, Austria, Germany, wherever else. So, you know, let's be kind of kind to ourselves, and let's make sure that we're uplifting each other, because that's another reason why we're here together, connect as one community and recognize, you know, we're all trying and we're all putting in great effort and great work to do as much as we can. So thank you so much for sharing that. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, or you want to go, because, you know, it's very early for you guys and you've got a long day ahead of you. So if there's anything else you'd like to summarize, please do.
I think really quickly, somebody was talking about this earlier, and I just want to emphasize how much I agree with it in terms of not relying on Western media to create. Oh, sorry.
Guys,
No, sorry. I just got someone else speaking in the background.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, not relying on Western media to create space for us, because we don't realize how much power we have to build our own space, to have our own conversations, create our own media. And I think even that is just as fulfilling when we collectivize and we put our own stuff out there. Because you're right, like, I think the discussion before was on BBC having 2 articles, but still feeling like that wasn't enough. It's like, it has been picked up by media, but, you know, I think the importance of creating our own space is something that we can't understate. So that's the final thing that I...
Most definitely. Thank you so much. Sukhmeet Singh, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just really reiterating what Sukhmani said, that I know for Australia, I really just want this to be a jumping off point for us. You know, I really want this to be the start of something bigger. I want this to continue on, and like early signs, seeing everyone get together, it's really, really encouraging. Really encouraging, and I can't wait to see what we can do next.
We've got an international network here today, so thank you so much. Please put your social media tags in the chat, and you know, let's have people ahead of you. So good luck with that. Tag us in your pictures, and just again, thank you so much for taking your time out to join us here today. If there's anything else, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, again, good luck with your day, and stay safe. And Rab Rakha. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Fateh.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so if there's anyone else, again, that has any time constraints, just sorry to repeat myself, please do jump in, because I don't want you kind of waiting around to midnight or delaying your breakfast to jump into this conversation. But if not, I'm going to speak to Kunali Singh of the California Sikh Youth Association. Kunali, in the last probably 12 months, I have seen an amazing amount of work from the California Sikh Youth Association coming out of seemingly nowhere and really taking lead and charge of a lot of kind of community work and, you know, community direction. Just tell us about what that's been like, especially amidst, you know, the biggest protest within recent history.
Yeah, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Yeah, it was kind of surprising when we launched. We had no idea like we'd gain so much traction so fast, but I guess like the support of everybody else in the community really like helped us jump over those early hurdles to kind of have some impact in the community, right? So when the protest did begin in June with La Casadana or Deep Sidhu doing small level protests within their own bins, I think that's when we started taking notice that there's something that's going to be happening relatively soon. And so once these protests did start, obviously us being in the West Coast and not being directly in Punjab, there's so much we can do, right? So we just wanted to emulate as much as we could of the Delhi protests. So leading just and helping organize the San Francisco protest, the Sacramento protest, things like that. I think that's the work that we've been doing, and it's just a collective effort of everybody in California and just getting these kind of things done together.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's been really kind of a sight to behold, because I'm sorry if I'm getting the location wrong, but was it the Sacramento Rally that was kind of just huge and you know, groundbreaking in terms of the kind of impact Tell us what that was like to kind of help organize, and also what the response was like on the day and being part of such a, momentous occasion.
Yeah, the Sacramento Rally was amazing. We completely shut down the Capitol. We actually took the mistakes we made at the SF Rally, any that we did, and kind of tried to make sure that we didn't do them again. So we had a group chats created with other organizers, and there was a 30-40 man team from different areas within California that helped organize this. We had press teams, media teams, people working on the COVID side of things, making sure that if people didn't have masks, we had all the necessary PPE supplies. We created lists of all of the media outlets within America and just mass emailed all of them. And we ended up getting a good amount of response. And that's why I think that when the Sacramento Rally happened, we saw that there was much more news coverage that time around, and news coverage that was a little bit more positive. And I think just creating like basic things like infographics and just imagery and sharing that around really, really helped make that protest as large as it was. And also just the biggest thing was to reaching out to other media outlets. I think that helped as well, because they ended up coming on ground, interviewing people. Because what we saw at the SF protests and other protests were that media usually tends to just focus on the negative aspects of the protest, such as, hey, look, they blocked this bridge, or they blocked this street, yada, yada. And so that kind of also points to the direction of what I think Harj, if I'm saying your name right, brought up, that, we need to have our own central media. Sikh PA, you're doing great. So we need to get behind one central form of media so that we aren't reliant on others. And so we don't look too desperate at the end of the day, because we don't get the same amount of coverage as other protests did. So overall, I think the Sacramento Rally, it was just a great collective effort, everyone coming together. And that just shows what Ekta and unity brings. Just success all around.
Most definitely. In regards to, because you're the second person to say one central media, whether it's outlet, source, or other for the Sikh community, that's the only bit I would slightly disagree on, in the sense that it doesn't need to just be one, because otherwise, I could say that's Sikh PA, so everyone use us and just come to us.
Yeah.
The thing is, we can have many forms of the same kind of work, but the
absolutely
thing, we shouldn't try to derail each other. I shouldn't see someone I just see, for example, in based from Canada, but allowing a platform for the whole of the Sikh community is a new organization, new outlet, called BAAZ, BAAZ. And this news outlet, we're supporting them. We encourage that. We want more different forms, more outlets. The more, the better. So, that's the way, from our perspective at the Sikh Press Association, what we see would be beneficial to this. Again, just going back to kind of your work as organizers, what has it been like kind of taking on that responsibility and pressure? Have you felt like perhaps, you might be out, you putting yourself in I don't want to say danger, but putting yourself in kind of the spotlight where you might be taking the brunt of heat, whatever that might be, whether it's because COVID protocols are under question, or, even let's be honest, issues out from India. Is that something that kind of you guys have felt? I'd like you to speak on it, simply because there's other people that are organizers, and they might be able to relate to what you say here.
Yeah, funny that you bring that up. I think the first time that kind of hit me was when we had our SF protest at the consulate a few months back, before the morcha and everything, before COVID really was a big thing. And I spoke there, and I got a call from my dad saying dude, just be careful, because it's in front of the consulate. They always take images, things like that. But in terms of dealing with COVID, just to talk on that first, we made sure that there was no excuse for media to ever bring that up. So that was with gathering all the PPE supplies and making sure we reiterated to everybody that masks needed to stay on. We needed to stay 6 feet distance. And so that is what the Sacramento Rally, I think, did relatively great, was we had people just walking around with masks in hand, in Ziploc bags with hand sanitizers, things like that. So we wanted to deter from anyone saying anything in regards to that. But when it comes to like whether we're facing any pressure from India's side, I mean, we all know that India is great with its suppression when it comes to like social medias or overall anything like that. So that's the main thing that we've seen. And luckily we haven't been too, silenced as per se, but we do see that a lot. We'll see that when we get things trending on Twitter, how fast they disappear. We also see that, our posts get absolutely no traction simply because they don't allow us to promote. So just facing those kind of things is just, one step at a time. We all have to share a post. We have to like use our social media following to do that. If the giants aren't going to let us do that themselves, right? So hasn't been too hard, but it's definitely something that we've been trying to navigate carefully to not step on any toes. Yeah.
So no, thank you so much for that input. And I hope there are people that kind of, are in an organizational position that are taking that on board and listening to this advice, because from my perspective, I think the California Sikh Youth Association is a really great example of how, the community kind of work together to create traction in the areas that we want. And like I said, it seems like you guys have come out of nowhere to make such an impact. And something that's made my life actually easier. For example, just I think a week or two ago, we used an image you created about the NIA summoning of Deep Sidhu's family. And that got a lot of traction, shared all over the place. Because, I actually might not have the time or the ability to create these kind of things. So this is where, everyone's kind of working along the same path. We can take a little bit from you, you can take a bit from us. This is how we work. So again, thank you for your time. And if there's anything you want to summarize with, please do. And also, of course, put your social media tags in the chat so people can connect. So if you'd like to summarize, VG, anything?
Yeah, I think the one thing I kind of want to get across is that I was speaking to somebody and they told me this a few months back when this protest was at its like peak. They said that we as a collective usually look for motivation externally. Like when this protest started, I was very highly motivated and I still am very driven because of the energy that they're creating. However, these like winds of energy and motivation come and go. And so they said, rather than looking for external motivation and determination for these kind of efforts, you need to be the one creating that energy. So the only thing I really want to like get across is that this shouldn't be something that we do only because something grand and big has happened. This movement has been happening since the early 30s, right? So this shouldn't be that, hey, we're looking for the next big thing to happen, and that's when we're going to take the big steps that we need to, or we're going to look to make efforts to, allow other people to hear about what's happened to us and make better steps for our community. Rather, we need to be doing this on a daily basis at this level, at this collective level that we're doing it at. So I think that's just the biggest thing I've been able to take away from this is, is that we just need to be that energy, that we need to be able to create that energy for ourselves and our community. So yeah, that's all. I'll drop our links in the chat below if you guys want to follow us and see what we're doing next. Tomorrow, if you're in California, San Francisco, we're going to be at the consulate at 11 a.m. for the Republic Day that we're going to be protesting. So if you're in California, I would love to see you guys there. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ka Fateh.
Thank you so much, Kunali Singh, from the California Sikh Youth Association there with some really valuable input. Again, I feel like that organization is a great example of where community organization and cohesion and just kind of support for each other can take us, and they're doing a lot of great work. I'm looking to see if we've had anyone else join us. I'm looking for Jagjit Singh, not on yet. So if there's anyone else from any other part of the world, or even if you're from the same part of the world, please do join in the conversation. Let's speak about kind of what you're doing. Anything, however big, however small, even if you've just gone into work and had a conversation with your colleagues about the farmers' protest, let us know what that was like. And let's kind of connect our global Sangat here, a global Sikh congregation. So sorry, did I hear someone speak? Anyone looking to join in the conversation here? Or any questions for myself, anything as such?
Would I be all right to jump in?
Sorry, I got Isha Kaur, who's who's going to join in the conversation, I believe. Isha, if you can unmute. You put your hand up. Sorry if that was an accident. Did you want to speak, Isha? Hello, you need to unmute yourself if you're trying to speak.
Is there any chance I can jump in?
Yeah, sorry, Vijay. 1 second, somebody had
sure.
I'm just going to remove. I don't think they can hear me. Might have been an accident. Sorry, Vijay. Yes, please do speak.
Okay, so I'm a Hajj's brother, so I was really happy to kind of hear him speak earlier on, and yeah, really resonate with the points that he was making. There were a couple of things that are kind of at the forefront of my mind. And one of the things was with listening to one of the recent discussions from the California Sikh Youth Alliance. Their talks have been so to the point because they've been centering Sikhi, and they've been doing it in a language that really resonates. And also is accessible as well. I think that was really important. And one of the things that was actually hitting home, and when I saw this, I thought was really important, was and it's going to be a bit kind of ominous and heavy, but following this morcha, there's going to be a very heavy-handed response. And I think it's something that we need to be cognizant of, because I think we're probably all aware of what we're going through for the struggles, very recent history, what people are going through now. So it is a media issue, but there's going to be an aspect where, for example, they shut down the internet in Kashmir, right? So they have this blackout zone where they can have a free hand and do whatever they want, and that message doesn't reach anybody, and they use it as a tool. They've used that as a tool in the past on the raid on Amritsar, on Harmandir Sahib, and so there's two elements. We need to prepare for that in terms of we need to have equipment. So I'm using equipment kind of euphemistically in one sense, and people probably understand that. There's also another sense where we can learn from other struggles in other parts of the world. For example, the way that the Hong Kong protesters have dealt with China trying to shut down their internet. They developed their own kind of local networks of communication. So they had that kind of whole Bluetooth messaging app that they developed. So they were able to relay messages to one another without needing the central infrastructure that the Hong Kong government or the Chinese government has there. And so I think I don't know if anyone's has experience in tech, or if they know people that have that kind of tech experience, but I think there's an element where we need to be thinking about putting down our own infrastructure. So even a relay Wi-Fi router network or something like that, where we'll be able to, so that the people on the ground are able to kind of connect to the internet, and also live stream when stuff is because stuff is going to go down. I think we have to face that. Stuff is going to go down, and then people not being able to connect to the internet is going to be an issue. And so even if we can somehow look at alternative methods of connecting and having alternate networks where we can actually still provide that visibility of what's happening on the ground, I think that can prevent a lot of, even if it saves a few lives, or it saves it provides some visibility, it can have a big impact.
Most definitely. Just to jump in there, I some, like you said, these conversations can be a bit heavy, as we say, but these are conversations which are happening within the Sikh community, not just from yourself, through kind of many different spheres. I've heard similar things. So it is important that, on such platforms, we give a chance to kind of at least start the conversation, even if this platform, we won't focus on it. But you're very right in that, these are concerns we need to think about. For example, the internet was shut off at Delhi. I think it was in the middle of December. A lot of people were complaining. There was even doctors that were there providing medical aid. One gave an interview complaining about the internet being shut off around the area and saying that's getting in the way of them doing their jobs. So, I mean, this is something that we need to kind of consider and figure out ways to kind of work around, because my job here is I'm a media professional. I'm a press officer for the Sikh Press Association. If I can't speak to people that are getting their information on the ground, then, it renders us nearly obsolete when it comes to giving information about the farmers' protest. So this is very important for many different reasons. I'm sure the Langar Sevadars have their own reasons to say that they need internet there. I'm sure just simply as connecting with each other. So this is definitely something important to kind of think about. And, you know, we have a lot of people in our community that have tech expertise. This here is a platform to connect with each other. So please do make sure that, you know, you're putting your your social media tags in the conversation, and let's make sure that we are connecting with each other. So yeah, I mean, thank you so much for those points. If there's anything else, please do feel free to kind of, you know, just summarize.
Thanks for that. I'm really glad to hear that that conversation is happening in different spaces. I had that feeling, but yeah, it's really good to hear that it is going on. The other point I think I just wanted to raise on this is like, as my brother said, and many people have pointed out here, like we have a huge amount of content. We have this huge resource, like people, we have a very creative calm. And so we have this huge amount of content that is coming out from people. And I think what we need is like a bit of a strategy and analysis of like the media landscape of how we want to reach people. So having a look at like what messages are going to resonate with certain people and how they are consuming their media. And I'm sure there is this analysis that's going on, but I feel like, just being cognizant of that as well. Knowing like so Naujawan on like TikTok, and like even like breaking it down between like diaspora Naujawan, or we got like Punjabi Naujawan, the messages that we kind of want to get to them and what we want as the outcome, and also the way that we want to relate to kind of other populations, so like populations in Canada and the US and the UK and in other countries, how we want to connect with them and what we kind of want them to get out of the media that we're putting across to them. And one other point I think would be just like solidarity with other peoples that are struggling. There's like the Palestinian struggle, the Black Lives Matter struggle. When we like that lateral community, that lateral solidarity goes, I think, miles in terms of building those networks that we know aren't going to come from like a centralized corporate media. It's gonna be those messages that we can amplify. So we see the struggle that's going on in Palestine. That's like a similar struggle against like corporate land grab running through the state that we're experiencing in Punjab and stuff. So relating that struggle to others and also amplifying their voices through our own platforms. And we don't even necessarily need to expect anything in return, but we do it because it's good, and that shines an example as well. So that's just a couple of thoughts I had there.
Most definitely, VG, and thank you so much for those points. It's particularly about, you know, we need to be kind of, I think, a bit more focused and specific on what we're looking to do with our kind of media reach, and not just from a Sikh PA perspective, but general as a community, because you know, there's a lot more different spheres that we can work in, and a lot more different types of media. I said this on a conference 2 days ago with the British Sikh Organisation of Students. Sometimes when we think of media, we only think of perhaps social media and maybe like the news, whether that's newspapers or TV news. We need to also start thinking about films. We need to start thinking about everything, memes, you know, keeping, even within comedy, you can have a lot of you know, narratives kind of pushed through that, and that's worked against us in many ways. For example, the Sardar jokes, which are very prominent within India, which is basically making fun out of Punjabi Sikhs as not being the smartest people, which is the complete opposite of the realities when you look at the achievements of our community. But these are the way we can influence narratives, and it's great that you mentioned that. When it comes to the Sikh Press Association as well, there's one more thing about your talk about media. I'm perhaps quite backwards, old-fashioned, maybe even lazy, because we haven't ever gone out and been on Snapchat, been on TikTok. But you just saying that there made me think, okay, you know what, there's areas that we're lacking in. So perhaps this is something that the Sikh Press Association needs to do. And maybe we'll have a conversation about somebody like yourself doing that server, or if anyone else wants to reach out, I'll put the email address. You can get in touch with us in the chat. But thank you so much for your time, VG. That's really appreciated. I'm going to move on to speak with somebody else. So again, thank you for your time, and it was great hearing from you. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Singh. I had a question here before I speak to Bhai Jagjit Singh, and that was from Isha in the chat, who raised a hand, and her question was very specifically, are there going to be any links where people can watch some of the rallies that are happening in North America tomorrow? And so I guess the California Sikh Youth Association, if you guys can put, you've already put some of your tags, but if you can be clear if people can follow any live streams, if there's anyone else, you know, we've had invites from, are you watching it in India, Isha? I think she means watching it from India, or do you mean the rally in India? In India itself, in Delhi, that is going to be streamed on many different channels. So you can watch it on Akal channel, and British-based Sikh news outlet, KTV, Sikh channel, and I'm sure there'll be many different streams showing. We follow a lot of independent journalists, such as one called Punjab, Punyaab on Twitter, Sandeep Singh, Punjab, and I'll put his tag in the group chat here. And if you follow him, you'll be able to get live updates as well. He's always putting out live updates, an excellent journalist there. So okay, and you can find these things on social media as well. So if you check out social media and go to Akal channel social media or KTV, they'll have live streams of the rally taking place tomorrow. So I said next I'm going to be speaking with Bhai Jagjit Singh. Bhai Jagjit Singh is a well-known Sevadar here in the UK, does a lot of great work with groups like the Khalsa Foundation, running camps, doing all types of educational programs. And for the Sikh Press Association, it sounds like a lot, so I hope he doesn't think too much of it, but we have come to rely on Jagjit Singh a little bit because he provides these very detailed updates, daily bullet point updates that are going to be so valuable, not just right now, but I have a feeling, in 100 years time, people are still going to be reading these updates because they're so well written in that they're detailed and they're specific and they're straight to the point. And this Seva is something he's done daily since the Morcha first started in late November and has continued ever since. So speaking to him now, Jagjit Singh, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us, Ji. If you'd just like to start, I'd just like to ask, what made you think that it's important to put out these kind of detailed updates as you do? And I'll put your social media tags in the group so people can see them for themselves too.
It really started by accident, because we have large groups. We have very large WhatsApp groups, etc., where we have a lot of people following the things that we do, whether it's in Australia, North America, a lot in UK. In UK, we have this thing called Sikh Dads and Sikh Mums Network, where there's hundreds of Punjabis and Gursikhs who just want to get tips from us about how to be better parents. So when this Morcha started, because so many are new to Sikhi, I thought I'd just do an update just to explain things a bit more, but do it in a really quick bullet fashion. And because so much was happening, it was getting like 20, 30 bullets every day. But a lot of them got the bigger picture of who Ambani was and who Andani was and what is good, the media, and what's actually going on. And it really hit home about 5-6 days in, because people were saying to me, oh, no one's passed away today. And then I was looking that day and like 5 Sikhs had passed away. So then I started putting it, and that's why in all the updates, the first thing I write is if someone's passed away, because I think we need to acknowledge the qurbaniya of these families. And it's built up now, and now it's thousands of people read it every day, and it's taken me a bit by surprise. But the key thing for me is it's very important we document our own history. So what happens is that history gets manipulated very quickly. A lot of the diaspora Sikh youth have very little knowledge, even if they're Khalistani, of what actually happened to Sikhs since Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time. So Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time, if you just give me about 5 minutes just to explain something. So Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time was the last time that the Sikh nation was in charge of its own destiny. After that, the Gore, and we've been constantly fighting against the Gore. And then what's happened is Brahman Raj has come in. Now, what happened in 1947 was that the Brahmins realized if they get rid of the Sikhs, divide the Sikhs, and if they divide the Muslim vote, that it doesn't matter if Congress come in or BJP, it will always be Brahman Raj. So that was intentionally done to divide Punjab, and it was intentionally done to basically create Pakistan so that a lot of the Muslim vote, even though there's probably more population of Muslims in India, but it split their vote, and that was quite key. Now, just to give you an idea of how Punjab is being misused, In 1947, one of the key areas that the Brahmins wanted to control and didn't want to go over into Muslim rule was Kashmir, and another one was called Hyderabad. And in Hyderabad, so what they did was the Sikh armies, and at that time, over 30% of the Indian army, the British army that was transferred, were Sikhs from Punjab. And you're talking about close to 1 million people were basically in various parts of that army was intact. So they intentionally, Nehru intentionally sent all the Sikh armies into Kashmir and Hyderabad so that they can control it. As a result, Punjab, where the actual division was, they had no one there. And as a result, 1 million Punjabis died. Now, whether the Punjabis were Hindus, whether Muslims or Sikhs, essentially they were all Punjabis. The sensible thing was that you would have had the army on the front line where your border is. And as a result, when we look at partition, people still see as a tragedy of this fault line by this civil servant in UK. But essentially, there's a much bigger picture there of what was done to Punjab. And if you look at, if you're living in Maharashtra, or you're living in Delhi, or you're living in Tamil Nadu, partition meant nothing. You just put a flag up. You had the British flag before, now you put the Indian flag up and you're happy. The thing about partition where it destroyed was Punjab, Bengal, and these areas that were actually split in half. And if you look at Sikhs, because my family, we had land on the Pakistan side, and we also had land on this side. The land on the Pakistan side was far more fertile, and we only got a third of what was taken away from us on this side. But far more important than that was the amount of literature. And if you look at all of our Sikh history, the biggest morches, the Sikhi spirit was not on this side of Punjab. So when you read your history, you'll see Nankana Sahib Morcha, you'll see Panja Sahib Morcha, you'll see all these Jato, all these morche were happening on that side, because that was the real big control of what Punjab was. And now the key decision was also taken was to take Lahore out of Punjab. So when they took Lahore out of Punjab, they basically took our capital, which was our powerhouse. And in there was a lot of our history of our Raj, whether it's through Maharaja Ranjit Singh or the Qurbaniya of our Gursikhs, and Nankana Sahib is very close to it. So the key things, Nankana Sahib, and if you look at today, much of this, what's happening today, even in the farmer thing, in that video I tried to explain, that Lahore is so close to Amritsar. If we still had Lahore today, we would not been able to, we would not have to rely on Delhi. We would have had our own thing, and that was intentionally taken away from us. Now, why is it important to document? My own great-grandfather was a Babarak Ali, and he was hanged by the British because he judged for freedom. And I didn't know that myself as a young man growing up. Is only when I went to Punjab and we were taken to my grandma's bend, and they said to me, and I said, because I'm always interested in Sikhi, I said, well, who's that Singh, the gate at the front? And all the villagers laughed at me and they said, that's your great-grandfather. And then I started reading about him, who he was. And the Indian government wrote a book on his life, as they did with many of the freedom fighters. But in that book, they wrote that he was a communist. And he was never a communist. He was a Gursikh, a Khalsa, and he actually said, I don't want anything left for me because basically I don't want it to be a memorial. Everything I do for my guru. And this is how our history has been constantly manipulated. And I'm a firm believer that we have to document everything that goes on. So when I wrote the book Qurbaniya by Fauja Singh of 1978, so many youth in UK read that book and inspired them to become Gursikhs. And in the same way, then we started writing in the early 90s, the Jeevans of our Shaheed Singhs. And now we are where we are today in terms of the camps, everything else that we do. But I think as history is happening, we have to write history, not from actually a Sikh perspective, but a truth perspective. Even if you look at the history we taught in schools, it's not the human history, it's the white man's European perspective of history. That's what we are taught in schools. So we will never hear, we will hear about Captain Cook basically discovered Australia. No, he didn't. There was Aborigines beforehand. That means brown-skinned people had come there before. Same with North America, same with everywhere else. But we will never study that. That's why in the same way in schools, we will never study colonialism. We will study Henry VIII and his wives and all that other nonsense. You know? So because they don't want us to know what was real, and this is why you get racism, these thought processes exist in the populace that we have, because the history they're taught is based upon the superiority of certain groups of people. And this is the same thing that's happening in India. In India, you've got a cult-like group which is attaching onto Modi in such a way. But the thing is, because this is what's happening here is so important now to India, what people are not realizing. They're thinking this is just about 3 laws, and it's not. There's only going to be 2 outcomes out of this. Basically, the first outcome is there's going to be a crackdown, like the VG just said beforehand. And that is the most likely outcome. And that's going to be devastating for Punjab, because we might lose another generation of activists. Right. Or the other outcome is that the Modi Sarkar will fall, and therefore the Hindutva project will fall. And that is major for the whole of India. And that's why when you see about people like Deep Sidhu talk about, oh, we want a federal structure, we want this, we want that. These ideas that they're talking about is about the Hindutva project falling. Now, what you have to understand about the Hindutva project, the reason these laws are important to the Hindutva project is that they want to destroy the existence of the cultures of individual states. That's not just Punjab, that's Haryana, but the southern states and everywhere else. Because for Hindutva to exist, they have to destroy these cultures and create a new culture, which is pure Hindu. And therefore, what people are not realizing is that this is intentionally being done to destroy the cultures of many states. And that's why the Shiv Sena in Maharashtra are standing up against the BJP. That's why in the South, they're standing up against the BJP, because they see a conflict on their language, on their culture, on their way of life, because many people don't want to have a Hindutva project. But centralized control is the only way they're going to create this. And therefore, we have to realize the much bigger picture on this. But the other thing that's also happening is, as a person who really believes in the power of Bhakti, is in this morcha, there's so much Bhakti that is happening, And I mentioned that a bit in my updates about the amount of, when you got hundreds of people sitting there doing Amrit Vela together, when you've had continuous Kirtan now for 57 days, when you've had even an Amrit there, you've got so many groups within the Panth coming together, and they're sitting there. What are they doing? They're doing Bhakti, they're doing Part, they're doing Simran, they're doing various other things. And it's also noticeable to me that the people that are doing Ninda of them the most are falling. A key one for me, Arnab Goswami. The thing that's happening to him at the very time when he was attacking the Bhagats. And these Bhagats, I'm not talking about Babbe with white clothes. I'm talking about the simple farmer, because when you're a farmer, you are in tune with God. Because you're sitting there for hours and you're in love with nature. And you're doing Simran and you're looking at your crop, you're watering it, you're nurturing it, and season after season after season, it creates a very serene nature in your personality. When they talk about these farmers are simpletons, that simplicity is their strength. Because ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚਲਾਕੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ, and ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਚਲਾਕ ਆ, ਉਹ ਬਾਅਦ ਚ ਨਾ ਚਲਾਕੀਆਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਿਰੁੱਧ ਵਰਤਦੇ ਆ. But eventually their chalaki destroys themselves, because that becomes their method of behavior. And that's what's happening with many of these people. Now, the key thing here is what's actually happened today is quite pivotal. And we have to see what the outcome of today is in terms of some youth have now taken control of the stage. It's very important that we have a united voice. And there's a diversity in this morcha that only Maharaj would create. The fact that you've got communists with Khalsas, and with Haryanvis, with Maharashtrans, when you look at the cultural and the outlook on life is so different of all of these groups of people, but they have one common strand, which is farming. And if you look at, there's only one thing that could have brought the BJP down in terms of, it couldn't have been Congress, because they basically self-imploded through their own corruption. And there is no other party in India that is strong enough to take these guys down. But the key thing is farming is so central to the existence of the average Indian. The fact that 70% of the people in the army, they are sons of farmers, doesn't matter what state they're from. The fact that so much of the population is doing farming, but what it is the Punjabis are the ones with the anak to stand first. And if you look at what's happened in Mumbai in the last 2 or 3 days, they are now openly coming out, which they weren't coming out before. The southern states are now realizing, we can, it's not that big thing. But the key importance here also we have to realize is, why have they not been able to do to this morcha what they did to the previous morcha, is because of the diaspora. The previous student morcha, which was about the fact that the nationality and the discrimination against Muslims, that didn't have an international diaspora perspective of it. And the fact that this does is massively helping them. And what we have to do is we have to be very imaginative to keep the spotlight on what's happening there from the global community. And that's why we can't be complacent thinking, yeah, we've done a few weekends, we've done a few things. It's got to be a constant drip effect, So this is what this is our Jimmewari. Everyone's got a Jimmewari. But if we come out the other side and they do pull back on these laws, whether they might change the name of them or anything else, the effect of the confidence that's going to have when people go back to Punjab, and you've already seen that. You've seen that the fact that Ravneet Bittu, who is such a vile and a hate-speeching person, and that could go to big smagams of Sant Babes and get surupes like he's done in the last few weeks, but he can't come to a farmer's march because they're reacting to him. And the same thing that Sukhbir Badal's going around Punjab saying, oh, we're running the morcha, but the reality is he can't come there. And so this level of confidence, if that goes back to Punjab, you're going to see that in the SGP elections, you're going to see that in the future Punjab elections, because the people that have been suppressing the voice of Punjab, whether it's been Badal or Captain, are both getting to an age where they need replacements. Now, the Indian government's already created sub-placements for them, but if the community themselves could create their own replacements. But the other thing I would also say to our Sangat is, what we have to do is we have to make Punjab viable. We can't just keep having this constant brain drain and this population shift, which is happening to UK, Canada, especially of the young students. And the numbers are exponentially growing so fast now, and especially in the last 18 months have been massive. So one of the key things is, what we have to do is we have to repopulate the areas around our Takhts with Sikhs. And so one of the key ways of doing that is, if I've got farmland and I'm employing people, rather than employing Biharis, and I'm not saying Biharis as I'm talking down to them, because even one of the Panj Pyare was from Bihar, from Guru Gobind Singh's time, but the Biharis that are taking Amrit, which they are in their hundreds, there's many of that are taking Amrit and they're becoming really good Gursikhs and knowledgeable Gursikhs. We welcome them with open arms, but we don't want the ones that are just cigarettes and doing drugs and basically, and I'm saying Punjabis do drugs as well, but the key thing is, the British Sikh Council, my father went with them a few years ago, and they're helping the Sikh Ligar and Banjari Sikhs. And you're talking millions of them spread around India. So what they did was they took them not just from their pens, what most people are just funding them in the pens, but what my father and other people did was they booked coaches and they took these kids and they took them to Darbar Sahib. And that was the first time in their lives they had ever seen Punjab. And that was the first time in their lives they've ever seen Darbar Sahib. And for them people, it was so eye-opening for them young kids that people live like this. They don't live in these huts or anything. And my father was saying to them, look, basically work hard, come to Punjab, get jobs, but live around Amritsar. So what we should be doing, one of the key things I think is very important to do is just like we have the Canada or UK has become the place of choice for people that growing up in Punjab, we have to make Punjab the place of choice or around our Gurdwaras for these Vanjari and Sikh Liga Sikhs, so that they're getting employment in the fields, they're getting employment in the cities, and we're opening them our arms to them. And you're repopulating all the areas around your big Gurdwara, your Itihasic Gurdwara, with Sikhs who actually love the Guru Granth Sahib. So you don't get these attacks on the Guru Granth Sahibs because the population is there. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense, Viji, as does everything you say. And I do have a couple of people with their hand up, so I'm going to move on, but thank you so much for your time. And again, I do repeat to everyone here that the Sikh Press Association, you know, we openly say that Jagjit Singh is somebody that kind of we look to for better understanding and to kind of reflect what is going on the ground, and a good kind of in-depth understanding again of what has happened before this protest, which has led to it. So I thank you for your time, VG. Do put in your social media tags because we do want people to follow you. So you know, this influence grows. Put it in the chat, and I'm going to move on now and hear from Rajneet Kaur. But thank you. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I am conscious that we've been on this for over an hour, 40 minutes now, so I don't want to keep you all for too much longer. But Banji, Rajneet Kaur, you had your hand up. I'm not sure if you wanted to ask a question or if you had something else to say, if you'd like to speak.
Hi, sorry. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So I'm a physician in California. And, you know, I appreciate SikhPA holding this event and getting people together. I think that's really a learning lesson during this time, is that we all need to work together, because working individually and separately, you know, we are not going to achieve, you know, what we want as a panth. So absolutely, this needs to continue. And I think everybody's doing a wonderful job. Everybody's heart's in the right place. And we hope for a peaceful and successful tractor march in India tomorrow. Now, a couple of things, you know, I appreciate Mehtab also presenting today, because we want to see who is actually getting money in the right places to the people in India that really need it. And we want to make sure we find the right avenues to do that. So I'll be getting in touch with him, because we're working locally. We have a sort of a Kisan think tank going on here, and trying to figure out how we can do some fundraising, how we can help different organizations that are doing the right work get the money they need to do their work, right? So so that needs to continue happening in the long run. But also one of the major issues, as you know, is this kind of I don't know if you call it like a kalam di ladai, or you would call it the internet, you know, war. There are a lot of issues, and we are working here locally on sort of a amplify group, where what would happen is, you know, we're actually reporting comments online, but we're trying to have a group where things are somebody finds something, they report it, other people report it. So we can get those comments offline, but it has to grow. So that's definitely an effect. But, you know, a unified message, a unified narrative for the Sikh Panth is necessary. So we do definitely need to work on that media aspect. But I think with Sikh PA, maybe you guys can, I don't know if there's anything where there are people connected in such a way that they can communicate with each other in whatever fields they're working in as far as media goes, or if everybody's kind of doing their own thing. I mean, certainly there's so many different fields. There's film, there's writing, there's, all sorts. But certain things like, as you know, with this protest, we are so far behind in our unified message online. And if we could be ahead of that game, and certainly, as you know, IT cells are way ahead of us. So there's so many factors, but I really strongly feel that organizations that are interested in having a PR agency, working together, doing all of this, need to get together now and do it so that we are ready if anything else happens in the future, or we are prepared as a bond to deal with issues as they come along. And yeah, and I appreciate everybody who spoke today, and the history, I think, by Saab there.
Thank you so much, Benji. And I completely agree, especially in regards to what you're saying about media. And, sometimes it might be hard to admit from somebody in my position because, it's something that we have to work on and take responsibility for because we're being paid by the Sangha to do a job here. But we are behind as a community when it comes to our work in the media. And that includes on social media, countering IT cells that are constantly destroying the narrative around Sikh activism. And there's a lot of work we have to do there. The Sikh Press Association, we're coming into our 6th year as a full-time organization, but we are still a very small team, unfortunately. At the minute, we just have 2 employees. That's myself and Devinder Pal Singh. We've never actually had more than 2 employees at any given time. And this is something that, we want to build on. We are funded by the charity Everything's 13. So we do rely on donations through there. And that's something that, we're working on and trying to change things. But unfortunately, the pandemic has made people's pockets a lot tighter for good reason, because obviously we're going through a difficult period now. We all are. So it's a difficult area to navigate, but it is one that we need to focus on. So I'm glad the likes of yourselves are kind of just bringing it to the fore of our conversations. Thank you so much for your input, Benji. If there's anything else you want to summarize with, any questions or anything else you would like to say?
I think I'll just put my information in the chat if anybody wants to connect. And I'm sure, some of us here are going to want to connect with people all over the world so that we can continue working on such a project. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And in regards to kind of connecting with people all over the world, I want to give a shout out to the R of Ours network and also the Poetic Justice Foundation, who I believe both are based in Canada. They've been doing a lot of great work bringing together people from all around the world to kind of try and coordinate efforts around the diaspora rally protests and everything that's been happening in terms of the narratives we're putting out. So they're also the ones that got us in contact with Sangat here from Australia that joined us today. So thank you to the Hour of Ours group and the Poetic Justice Foundation. Again, we've been on this call for nearly 2 hours now, so on this chat, so I don't want to keep people too much longer. Is there anyone else that wants to jump in with anything to say? I see Haj, Kera again. Vijay, if you can just keep it short simply because you've spoken already and, we just want to give other people, but yeah, please do join in the conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll keep it short. I just wanted to go off what Jagjit Veer was saying is that us as the diaspora, we can have a big impact on rebuilding Punjab. So even if that means some of us or an organization going back, buying land and creating spaces and companies and organizations where we ourselves export to sort of where our wealth went to. So when we look at Canada and UK, where did their wealth come from? There's a lady, Utsap Patnaik, who was an economist in India, who found that Britain actually siphoned out $45 trillion, and that's a huge amount. So we can actually go back there, buy land, create organizations, even shipping out haldi. I just want to give like tangible examples.
Yeah,
we can get haldi from Punjab, sell it here, and pay the people there more than a livable wage. So they're actually supporting the communities there. It's just I wanted to make things sort of a bit more tangible, so we can actually like see something that we can do. And it'd be amazing. I know you work closely with Everything's 13, but if we had like a central part, essentially, like Khalsa Aid has become a central part for the Khalsa to help out during mass events. If we had one for essentially the Sikh nation, to pool our resources together, we could buy it as an organization which cannot be corrupted. And we can support that way. I'll keep it brief, but thank you very much for letting me speak again.
Thank you so much for that input, BG. And I definitely, these again are the kind of conversations that many people are having when it comes to the work that can be done to further the issue that we're all trying to address, which has been it's been brought to the fore by the farmers' protest. I do want to point out, I saw Ravi Singh make a post, Ravi Singh of Khalsa Aid, and it's something that a lot of those that do groundwork in India, and especially in Punjab, are aware of that. There are a lot of difficulties with investing, especially in terms of mass investment in Punjab. There's obstacles, barriers that are put in place, both through the corruption, which is innate in India, and also issues to do with concerns about the influence that the Sikh diaspora or Sikh organizations can have out in India that I am aware of. It doesn't mean that it isn't possible. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't look to further our efforts in those areas in terms of investing in Punjab in any way, shape or form. But it's just about recognizing that there are also difficulties out there. I'm probably gonna call it a day now. If there's anyone else with any questions, any input at all, even if you just want to say, look, here's something where you can follow me, put your comments in the tag, put your comments, sorry, in the group chat, any tags. I have seen a few people ask for updates on what's going on right now with the situations, pardon me, out in Delhi. I would say check out at Jagjit Vaheguru. I put his tag in, I'll put it again if anyone wants it. He's just put out his latest daily updates, which you can see. I will add to that, there are some disputes going on about what route will be taken tomorrow, what route will be taken by the tractor rally. And that's what people are discussing right now, the protesters. But we are just all focused now on the Republic Day rally, which will be happening tomorrow. Is there anyone else with any other input that you'd like? Again, for updates, please do check out at Jagjit Vaheguru on Instagram and Twitter. But any other input, any other updates? Okay, so I think we'll call it now. It's been nearly 2 hours. Thank you so much for everyone for joining. Is that Harman Singh with his hand? Okay, last bit of input from Harman Singh. You can hear me?
Yeah, bro, I was just gonna, thank you, G. I was just gonna ask what your thoughts are on what we can best do over this Republic Day to really help with the visibility. Just what your thoughts would be on, over the course of this next day.
So what we can do is just make sure that we are having those conversations with our friends, our family, perhaps our colleagues. And I saw some efforts being put in by one Guru Sikh to write up an explanation to employers about the fact that a lot of the Punjabi Sikh diaspora right now, we're going through a period where it's difficult for us. And, mental health is a big topic nowadays. And we need to raise awareness, say, look, I might be a bit distracted today because there's this crazy thing going on which impacts my community greatly. And, even little conversations like that can put the trigger, put more focus on the issue at hand. Aside from those more personal conversations, I would say let's go on social media and talk about it. People are using the hashtag farmers protest, but also the hashtag Ask India Why, which has been pushed by the Poetic Justice Foundation to ask the question, ask India why they are treating their own people like this. And let's draw that attention, because the thought process is that hopefully the more attention there is on the protests out in India, the less likely there is to be the reactions we expect of the Indian state. And we all know what I'm talking about. The 1984 Sikh genocide is the most standout example. And join your rallies if it's possible. Join anything else that you can, and just keep raising awareness. Get in contact with your local media. If there's a rally going on, shoot them an email saying, are you going to come down to take pictures, or do you want to do an interview with somebody? Volunteer yourself for an interview if you're a confident speaker. Anything as such. And, we had Mutab Singh speaking earlier about the fundraiser, which he's been, making his best efforts to be very transparent about where every single penny goes. We can support those efforts too. So that's what I'd respond to that. Thank you for your input, Harman Singh. I'm seeing a couple more hands go up. So again, I'm just going to move straight on because I don't want to keep this too much longer over 2 hours. Firstly, 1 second. Yeah. BG, if you want to take yourself off, ask to unmute. I just put you on mute, BG. You just raised your hand. It's in Punjabi and I haven't had enough Santhia lessons to read that out the name, PG.
Waheguru Sir Shamsher Singh from the NSY. Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Yeah, I just want to talk about what's happened just now, basically, over the last few hours. At the Singh Morcha, and it's been a clash that's kind of been building for a long time between like the farmer unions and like the youth, especially where they've banned like certain speakers like Deep Sidhu, Lakha Sadhana, who've wanted to center the conversation more on like the larger issues surrounding the farm bills, Punjab's Azadi, etc. So like there's been a clash. Essentially, well, not a violent clash, but basically more a disruption. The farm leaders left the kind of stage, and now the youth have taken over the stage. There's like 10,000 youth that gathered, took over the stage, and they've kind of decided now they've appointed a 5-member committee, which includes Deep Sidhu, Lakha Sadhana, Sukhpreet Singh Odoke, Bir Singh, and Raja Ram Singh, who's in Ahang Singh, and they're basically now going to represent Sangat to the farm unions. And Pai Mantir Singh spoke as well about how, you know, on behalf of the Sangat to take the message to the farm leaders and how Sikhs should be organizing, and they've set up like a Panj Singh a thing as well to talk to the unions. Essentially, the clash is around the unions accepted a route that was given by the police, and you know all the farmers there they want to go to Delhi in it. They don't want this to be a Republic Day parade. And the unions have kind of been pushing like the India messaging, you know, trying to like reduce the clash as much as possible. I was watching some of the footage coming through, and there's an elder Singh who's talking, and he's like, we've been sitting here for weeks and they're talking about being peaceful. Like, we're not idiots. People are dying here every day. What peace is there here in it? So tomorrow, it looks like the chances of violence and clashes between the Sangat and the police, you know, it's going to be much higher than it probably would have been. So it's going to be probably going to be a very intense day for everyone tomorrow.
Anji, no, thank you so much for that input, because it's important for us to put into context just how kind of big the day is tomorrow, and it's important to know, you know, the latest. And I did see that update about the kind of youth 5-man committee, and I don't think it hit home just how big a move that is and how important that is, VG. Is there anything else you'd like to summarize with before we lastly get heard from Jagjit Singh and then call it a day? VG, Shamsher Singh?
Yeah, it's a massive thing, and it's been actually building for a really long time, because you know the diaspora has kind of played a role in turning, you know, a Sangat-led decentralized movement into a hierarchical movement, kind of being like the farm unions are the leadership because they're speaking to the government. They're not the leadership. They're literally facilitating on behalf of the Sangat. If it was up to the farm unions, the demand wouldn't be to repeal the law. They would have settled a long time ago. So it's a really big deal, and like you know, obviously the farm union as well, they want to, you know, they've tried a couple of times to minimize Sikhi and to, you know, center everything under the Indian flag. You know, Sikhs don't want to do that. And Republic Day as well, like what it means, you know, Republic Day for Sikhs isn't a day of celebration. You know, Sikhs never signed the Indian constitution. We're not party to the Indian state. So yeah, so like if you want to read more about this, check out khalistan.org, the publications, because it's really important that youngsters politically educate themselves, because that leadership, the direction we look to from like governments, MPs, all the rest of it, we're just not going to get it, and we shouldn't be looking to them. It's on us to politically educate ourselves and to learn as much as we can about this clash between Sikhs and Delhi that has been building for generations, because that's you know, the responsibility that's on our shoulders, that we gotta, you know, it's a larger sangarsh that we're a part of, and sanu apniyan zimmewariyan sambhaniyan chahidiyan.
Anji, no, thank you so much for that, VG, and that's very important. We've seen that as a kind of reoccurring theme in this conversation here today, that we cannot rely upon whether it be governments or mainstream media to satisfy issues which, you know, are impacting directly our community. As I said earlier, even if the BBC ran a 24/7 report on the farmers' protest, it wouldn't still bridge that gap between, resolving the issues that we want, as much as kind of, you know, that we might see as that helps. And thank you. I was just going to say, Vijay, do put your social media tags and anything else in the group chat so people can kind of connect and follow. I'm going to just ask Jagjit Singh if you could briefly summarize any last few points, and then I will wrap up today.
I'll be very quick. All I would like is a binti to everyone to contact your journalist organizations and say to them there's a good possibility that journalists will be under attack. So if you say that, that makes them think about the issue more. And the reality is, Jasveer Singh from KTV, many of these other journalists, they were given notices by the NIA, etc. So basically, and if a clash happens, because there's so many Punjabi journalists in there and part of this movement, document this movement, they will get under attack. So that often brings picks their ears up a bit more and says, yeah, we really need to look at this. I can see a strong chance of a clash tomorrow, because I don't think, as we Shamsher Singh, and they've got a lot of good literature, he said that I don't think many of the farmers are going to stick to the roots. They're very frustrated, and they want to make send a strong signal, so they're going to go on the ring roads, and they're going to try and get to the Lal Gila. And that is what many of them are saying now on social media while we've been doing this program. So it is going to be quite important what happens tomorrow.
Thank you. So Sangat ji, we're down to the last 12. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined us today. We've heard from Sangat from Malaysia, Kenya, Austria, Canada, USA, Australia, and it's been great for people from all around the world to connect as a Sikh Sangat. We are a Sikh Qawm, that means a Sikh nation. We are one nation. And just thank you so much for your time here for this conversation. And please do follow and support all of the people that have put the social media tags in the group chat now. But we will be calling it a day now. Do remain focused on the issue at hand. That tomorrow or today, if you're in Australia or Malaysia, the 26th of January is a massive day. There's a lot of concern about what will happen tomorrow. So let's ensure that we're focused on what is going on in India, and let's ensure that we're kind of doing anything we can to raise awareness and support the protest. So again, thank you for your time, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.